All right, so we're going to open the meeting today. We should have a fairly, we know we've got the budget thing after this, so all the sewer guys are going to be getting here, so we're going to move things along. We don't have Dan tonight, so we shouldn't have any.
Should go quick.
Right, so, all right. Approve the minutes of regular meeting. Do we have anybody?
I'll move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 16, 2022.
Second.
Okay. You're all in favor? 4. With,
I'll abstain.
Yeah.
I guess it's custom.
Yeah, all right. Financial report, Tanya?
Revenues are favorable, $158,000. The variance in expenses is now up to $235,000. All projects are going to be closed out at year end. None are going to be carried over, which is a good thing. And November ended with $3.1 million cash on hand.
The expenses were favorable?
No,
No.
revenues were.
Revenues,
There's
yeah.
quite a variance in expenses. We're at $235,000 now.
And that's from,
That is from chemicals are leading that.
yeah,
Payroll, we never turned from all the main breaks last winter. Materials are pretty high on that. Legal's high.
We got multiple big deliveries of sodium hypo, didn't we? We must have been low.
A lot of our deliveries have been partial. So,
4 deliveries, and some of them were a lot of money, and some not so much.
so
All
they were
gonna be a
catching
lot
up.
of money moving
Yeah,
forward.
we, you remember we pumped up the budget for next year for the
Yeah, darn good thing you
expected
did.
overrunning chemicals.
Forethought.
Yeah.
I had a couple of questions real quick.
Yeah.
Were we gonna get a copy of that salary study,
Oh,
or get an idea?
yes, I can, I'll get that for you. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do need to get a more consolidated report from it. As I mentioned, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, we got a new pay grid, but I wanted to give it a little more than that. There should be a more, an explanation of what went into it and a report on it.
Well, that's what I'd like to see. I think this
Yeah.
board could benefit from it,
Yep.
even if it's next year. Because I just, in a loss, what I don't wanna do is just have this approach that says, oh, we're scared, we're gonna raise everybody's salaries, just because we're scared with no rationale and no.
let's have that conversation
Yeah.
during budget. Is that fair?
Well, no, because this is just for future. I mean, I'm not gonna say no to it. I just would like to have that. The other question I had was, I noticed a lot of in-lake testing. Is that more than usual? That's because of what our worries about.
Bob was just asking
turnover.
about that as well. I'm not sure, I know inlay testing did increase in
Well,
October and
a lot,
November.
yeah.
You
But
guys
I
know?
don't know about these invoices, what they're covering. I know Chris said some of this,
So rather-
Results?
Yeah, just because that's the bill, doesn't mean that was, we don't know exactly when the sample was taken.
they were
Well, it's like-
behind a
they
little
show
bit.
date, yeah, they have
We
like-
haven't turned up our monitoring of Lake Auburn, so there's no new sampling, but I know there's been a backlog of getting the samples analyzed up in Augusta. So the phosphorus, we're not certified in phosphorus, bring them up to the state lab. So they're having troubles with their equipment, so now they're processing a bunch of them. They get them processed, you get the results, you get the bills. So I think they got kind of compounded at the end of the
Kind
year.
of backlog.
Yeah.
And Tanya, you mentioned that we're 235,000 over in payroll?
No,
Overall expenses.
overall expenses.
Overall expenses,
Yeah,
okay.
payroll is 69.
So our budget was 2.39, so we're gonna be, I see, you got it in there. So we're gonna be 240 over that,
Yeah.
okay. All right,
Hopefully, we can turn that over this year,
Yeah,
because, you know.
Revenues were up too.
they were, yeah,
Yeah,
not
absorb
quite
some.
enough to offset.
We'd like to put those
the
revenues
total.
back in the bank for more pipe. We'd like to have the increased revenues.
Not just 5%, you know, 10%, 13%.
next year's gonna be, the year that's gonna be brutal with everything, the city too.
Price of Walmart gas, 309.9 regularly.
City can't print money.
That is the problem, that's right.
Feds can print money, but there's a limited amount, so. All right, any other questions for Tanya on the financial report? Okay, great, thank you, Tanya. Ratify the payment of bills.
I move to ratify the payment of bills.
Okay, anybody, second? Second. Yeah, all right. Any other questions? Anybody have any other questions on those? All in favor? Okay. Public comment. Pam, do you have anything to say?
Nope, I'm just here to listen.
Okay. Activity project report.
All right, your activity reports. We did scramble quite a bit in the last month on getting some sewer projects wrapped up, so we didn't hit terribly hard on the water side of things. We did have a couple of water main breaks that actually both fell on the same day, which happened to be a holiday. It was the day after Thanksgiving.
Oh, God.
The guys worked hard, they did a good job. We did have another water main break today, but they got that taken care of pretty quick.
One of the breaks was on Hotel Road? Is that a water
One was
main or
on
was that
Hotel Road.
public? That wasn't a person's own pipe?
No,
that
it was
on
a
pipe.
water main, yeah.
And that's being replaced, right?
Nope.
No, that's not.
Nope, not that section. That
Did it get really cold that day or something? Is that
No,
what
you know,
caused that?
every year I see this, but I don't like to talk about it too much, but the temperature of the lake has shifted dramatically in the last, 60 days. I'm talking, 30-degree temperature swing in the lake, and every year I see this when your water temperature swings like that.
Oh.
It's not so much that the ground's shifting, but the temperature and the temperature differential between the ground and what's in your pipe changes. So
That causes cracks.
Right, your groundwater temperature is a constant
A constant.
54 degrees, and now if your water is now 10 or 20 degrees colder than the ground temperature, things happen. So
that makes
every
sense.
year you see it, and I notice it around the same temperature in the lake, and I'm not going to talk any more about it.
Okay,
right?
fair enough.
So, but yeah, we did have a couple in November. We got all of our gates and stuff moved out of the way for the plows, tried to get all that stuff wrapped up on the year. Tried to get all the hydrants. Every hydrant in our system, I'm proud to report we have had a hydrant that's been out of service for a better part of 10 years now. We're by Roy's at the Rotary on Washington Street, north and south. That is now back in service. That was a very difficult one to repair. We did not have the tools to do it, so the vendor's rep met us there, and we were able to get it fixed and back in service.
So the last one, Center and Union, hit by car, did they get the car? No, it's a hit and run.
Hit and run.
All right. Really, water damage, water replacement, or?
It doesn't take much to cost a lot, but we didn't have to replace the hydrant, so it was a breakaway kit.
Okay, good, thank you. That's too bad.
Yep, unless anybody had any other questions on the activity report, that's all the highlights I wanted to bring up, I guess.
Okay.
Project update, I did want to give you an update on the status of the 555 Court Street. So I think you did all get, Sid was sending emails, keeping you in the loop. We did get a determination back from PUC that we could not impose an upfront cost for taking on the ownership of that station. Therefore, if we took on the ownership, we'd be burdening our ratepayers with the maintenance and perpetual ownership of that. Based off from the feedback and what we had talked about at previous meetings, we said, okay, we do disagree with the PUC's findings. We feel like what they're saying contradicts what's in our terms and conditions and what's in their own rules and regs. So we did file an appeal with their decision. We're still waiting to hear back on that. And we did issue the owner a letter saying, okay, we're not going to be able to take over ownership and cover our terms and conditions by not burdening. So this will now be a private main extension. The water is actually on now. They haven't installed their pumps yet, but the water is onto one building and the mains are activated. It is private. We own the gate and Court Street. They own everything else. So they understand that. They would like to work with us in the future after this appeal process to come up with, this is not the way they wanted it to end, but they do understand given the circumstances. So this time that's private, and that is not our station at this time.
So a technical question. If there's a water pressure problem already, it's got to be due to the lack of water reaching that area or the quantity of water reaching that area. And if they turn that pump on, are they going to cause a lower pressure issue for the other people in that?
So that's a good question. We did, and the developer did pay for this. Our engineer, Wright and Pierce, who has a modeled system of our water system, they paid to have an analysis done to make sure that the addition of those pumps would not impact negatively our system or our customers. So that means if their pumps kick on and they open up all their hydrants and all their sprinkler systems go at once, their maximum draw in our system, it still will not impact. It will not cause low pressure on anyone in our system.
Wow.
So it's a 20-inch, there's a 20-inch water main there, and it's right next door to a 4 million gallon tank. So there's lots of water, but there's very little pressure. So they can open up a hydrant right now, but they're only gonna get about 200 gallons a minute of water out of it because they don't have the pumps in there. So right now, those hydrants aren't adequate for fire protection,
Until the
you
pumps
know,
are going.
until they get their pumps in there. And when their pumps in there and their pumps run, it still won't impact us. It's not gonna impact our system because we have enough sizing and infrastructure in
That's what I worry
place.
about, is that really that area's already got that problem.
And we've actually gotten a number of calls with residents who live nearby to that with that same concern. You know, people who live on Dawes Ave. We fielded a call this week, one on Pinnacle called last week. You know, we've been answering that question.
So that if they have a problem with their pump station, their, not gonna be ours, it's gonna be theirs, and also the
Sprinklers.
sprinkler, thank you, the sprinkler system, that big monster pump, whatever. If they have a problem with that, who are they gonna call? I'll rephrase, are they gonna call us or somebody else?
If they call us, we're just gonna say contact your owner. You know, if it's a resident who lives there who's calling us, we'll refer them back to the owner.
And if everything's
You know,
fine to that point,
Exactly.
So who bills them?
We're gonna bill them based off how much water goes through their water meter, but as far as,
So individuals aren't gonna get a bill from us?
no.
Oh.
They're gonna have to include it.
There's gonna be one owner for all the buildings. That's kind of that's one stipulation. They can no longer sell off any of those lots or buildings within that development, because you can't have more than one owner on a private main.
Oh, okay.
So if they had any intentions of subdividing or sub-metering or selling, you can't. It's a private main, so you can't
So you could put
subserve.
condos in there or anything anymore.
Yeah, they have to do another pump system for that house.
Right.
or unless the condo association picked up the tab.
Unless they were the owners
Right.
of the condos.
Had to do another, but they have to do a completely different pump station.
No,
probably,
no, that pump station was built in size for all their future plans.
Oh, I see, yeah.
But they can't individually sell off lots within or anywhere. They can't serve any other additional lots from their private main. And if they do, it has to be of the same owner, you
Right.
know,
So they
Because they can't become a water company.
correct.
Right, so if the house, if they sold a lot, that house would have to have their own.
They'd have to have a well then.
What if the
No,
HOA
no,
had?
no, if they
What's the
sold,
owner
if they
of that?
can't sell a lot, but if they had a lot that was separate, they would have to own it. The American Development Corporation, who owns 555 Court Street, they would have to own that.
I see.
And then subcharge whoever's living there whatever they want for water.
Gotcha.
But they can't sell it, I can't go up and buy it and live here and then pay a water bill. No,
Right,
you can't
yeah.
have two, because if I didn't pay my bill, the district only has one valve, we're shutting it all down. That's,
Right.
it comes back to,
Oh,
it comes
okay.
back to control of the system.
Right.
That's why they can't sub-meter it or sublet or
Mm-hmm.
serve other lots.
So as an HO, if they did it, if they had an HOA, which they probably would, I mean, okay. So the HOA your HOA fees would also cover your water.
That's gonna be up to them.
That's
Right,
how
right.
they do it.
That's how they would do
Then
it.
you
That's
would,
good business
right,
at that point.
water would be included in your
Water's
HOA.
included in your HOA,
Yeah.
like your plowing and your whatever,
You could do
whatever
that.
else.
Which I'm assuming that's the route they're gonna go.
So that will bring up one other question, and that is the cost per month. Do you have any idea what their bill is going to be average?
We looked at similar buildings over off Grace Lawn and North River Road, and I don't have a dollar figure that I can quote you right now, but we're gonna get some revenue from 16
I'm just talking
apartments.
about their ability to pay. Now you've got one owner, that if they don't pay their bill, are we shutting off water to
Yeah.
50 people?
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna shut it, we got one valve.
Which is a bad thing, so it would almost be like they've got to have a bond or some sort of a way of proving to us that they can make that water bill every month.
That's their-
We don't require that of any other
It's gonna be
customer.
another customer.
It's just
Really?
Yeah.
it's like a big commercial customer, if they don't pay, we're shutting it off. You know, that's up to them to manage.
The only deposits we take are for tenants, we don't take any from
Oh,
property owners.
You and Sid are always on top of all the details and stuff like this.
it's good to me, it's just,
But we're still waiting now, as Mike mentioned up front, we're still waiting we did file an appeal to the Public Utilities Commission, so this is a real, it's kind of an important.
Well, it
piece
sets the
for us.
precedent going forward.
Exactly, so we're, I don't know when we're gonna hear back from the Public Utilities Commission, but when we do, it's gonna be interesting to see if they uphold their decision. So it's not necessarily over, but at least we have until we get something different, this is the path we're on. I don't think the developer wanted that to happen either, because they wanted us to own it.
Right.
Yeah.
But we don't,
I'm sure
we
they
don't
do.
have the ability technically to charge them for it, so even if they wanted us to, we can't charge them. I mean, they couldn't pay us even if they did want to, right, as it stands right now.
It's always easier to let someone else deal with your issues and problems instead of dealing with it in-house like they would have to. It's our problem, not theirs, you know, hey, it's out of their hair, it's wonderful for them, not necessarily for us.
But this, hopefully this will give us a clearer path for moving forward, because this is not the last development we're gonna see like this, I'm
Right.
sure, in the future.
All right,
That's all I had.
great. Gonna, old business, I don't think we have any old business unless anybody has something they wanna bring up. Okay, new business, Sid, water quality.
Yeah, water quality update, I've got it in your packet in the memo. The lake turnover did occur on November 18th. As you know from previous discussions, lake turnover is a good thing, because that's when the whole lake becomes destratified and the entire water column gets mixed. The problem is when you get anoxic conditions at the bottom of the lake, and we were certainly approaching that at the time, so lake turnover is good. As you know, I've been reporting the last several months on the lake quality. It hasn't been great. We've had a long time where we've had turbidity over a 1, so we've been watching it very closely. We've been in contact with Dr. Ken Wagner. He was on the team that we had back in the early 2010, 2011, when we first discovered issues going on in the lake. He was one of the consultants that kind of helped us through that process. He's still around, and we've contacted him, sharing data and talking about the lake condition. He's going to be submitting to us a report based upon the data we have, giving us sort of a strategy moving forward, or different things to consider to bring the lake back to health again. Some of the things that, the tools we have in our bag are, alum treatments. As you know, we've been working to put an RFP out there to possibly extend the intake. We're looking at potentially alum dosing stations. Those are things we talked about years ago as well. So we're just kind of dusting off the old reports and updating the data to get an idea for what we can do moving forward. And based upon his recommendation, we might get the team together like we did way back when. We obviously need to involve the drinking water program, the DEP, inland fisheries, pesticide management board. It's quite a full table of people we have when we're deciding what's going to be in the best interest of the lake. So I think that's going to be happening probably again in the spring. Just to give you a heads up on that. During the month of November, we did have quite a large influx of migratory gulls on the lake. Talking with Ben Nugent from USDA, there were a few nights we had up to almost 1,000 gulls coming roosting on the lake. Looking at some of our in-lake water sampling data, we did have some coliform hits when those events occurred, but they were successful in chasing them off. So they were just migratory birds, got them out, got them on their way, and that seems to have subsided. But it just shows the importance of having the USDA be able to do that. If they weren't there to chase them away, they might hang around for a week or two. So they did chase them off, and that was disaster averted. So that's it on water
So
Oh,
quality.
when you were saying bringing, assemble the stakeholders,
Yep.
is that what you just mentioned, the group you just mentioned, not bringing Lewiston and us together in terms of who's gonna pay the bill and how much we're gonna pay and all that kind of stuff?
that kind of stuff certainly would happen as a result of this,
Okay.
but right now, we're just
So
looking at.
stakeholders are just not really we're Lewiston, Auburn, are the stakeholders, as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
Ratepayers are the
when
stakeholders.
yeah, right. But when I talk about stakeholders, I guess I included the regulatory agencies as well.
See, dosing stations like on Townsend Brook,
Yep, Townsend Brook, that's probably the, the largest culprit in the place. We'd more than likely look at doing it up at the North Auburn end where the basin dumps in. And there are a few tributaries around the lake too that have unusually high amounts of phosphorus when there's a.
This is where you always get a bad rap, and Auburn gets hit in the shorts when it comes to this problem, and we know it's coming from the north of us, a lot of it. This could be a good opportunity for us to bring that up and say, listen, we need some help from the people that are causing a vast majority of this problem.
Something's naturally occurring.
And it's naturally occurring too, but, right, it's also, if it's the appetite.
In the
that's
lake
water,
already,
In the lake.
yeah.
Those things, we've got to come to a consensus so people know, but we got to get others involved, they're causing it. And I know we can't just wave a magic wand and say you're paying a percentage based on your development in your town, but something's got to happen, because we're getting the blame for causing these problems, and it's not, we've done, I think, a great job as best we can.
It's certainly a larger issue, and it's gonna require some discussion.
So this might be an opportunity to bring that up and get their stakeholders too, because if they're actually contributing to the pollution, they should be involved and become stakeholders somehow.
city
They
town
have a-
ordinances and.
They have a voice at the table of OPAC, and yet they're still not responsible. They can do whatever they want to do. This doesn't make any sense to me.
That's true, we have no written agreement or anything with
They're
them.
just part of the commission, and they have a
Isn't
voice in what
there-
happens, but not when their own town is involved.
But don't we have some overreaching power with the Maine drinking water program?
They have to write their own-
Don't they give us, aren't we allowed to, can we impose any regulation upstream, or?
Not directly on a, I mean, the real authority comes from the charter that the district has, so we have control over land within the city of Auburn.
Excuse me, you can't do an order, write an ordinance for the upper towns
No, that's the
at
problem.
all?
And we can't ask them to do
We
something.
can, but the real leverage we have is through the commission, because they're represented on the commission.
So if
The
they
watershed
just do it on
towns.
their own, then,
Well, we rely, and we've always had good cooperation through the commission for the representatives we have from the towns. And that's, I think that's what's gonna have to continue in the future.
Good cooperation, but it's still a problem. Townsend Brook is, what do you mean cooperation?
Well, we've administered grants, we've done work in the upper watershed towns with grant money. We need to work with them, and I think I don't think a hammer is gonna work as well as a,
Well, no, I'm not saying hammer, but it just seems to me that they should think it's to play
they
fair.
may not even know,
Well, I think they do.
right?
There was a major study done on Townsend Brook, right? An extensive kind of study was done on it?
yeah, there've been a number of studies over the years, yes, on Townsend Brook and the upper watershed.
Anything we should
Where
see?
sources are coming from. We haven't done it for a while, I can't remember when the last one was done, it was done by Summit, back in
It was a few years
the,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could make recommendations, or the commission should, I know we're not, but at least try to, when this is all done, we've got some things going on that are unfortunately in the litigation, so we can't talk about it, but there's still ways we can start going towards, and at least it can be on the record that we asked this town to do this, and they refused. There's nothing been asked of them.
Yeah, because they have their annual town meetings, and, I mean, if we at least put out, can you adopt this septic standard, whatever it be, X,
Whatever it
Y,
might be to
Z,
try to control phosphorus level in the
Right,
brook.
in the watershed.
And if it's on the record they refuse, that could give us some leverage.
Right. But, I mean, we gotta start by asking too.
Well, you said, the soft way first.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about going in, because we can't. We don't have any legal standing to make them do something.
Right, you can't do
It's so discouraging to have, like you say, a house close to the lake that happens to be in another town with a septic system. it just happens to be in another town.
Right, well, look at Little Wilson. The other side of there's one side of the lake that has a lot less regulations than the Auburn side.
I will
correct?
say, based upon my experience, our relationship with the watershed towns has always been actually very good. There was a development that occurred on Little Wilson Bluffs, and they agreed to adopt some pretty strict standards, and that's a project that the commission monitors every year. And they voluntarily had us come in and monitor to make sure that they're not creating a lot of runoff into Little Wilson Pond. So it's discouraging to me when I hear that, the other towns are getting away with murder. They're not. They've been working with the district and the commission for years. And I think they will continue to do so.
I guess it just hasn't been clear what they've been doing, so that's what I'd like to see,
Yeah.
if that's true, if they have been
Right.
setting the standard or ordinances or watching this or watching that. We just don't know that, we just hear all the stories about the fact that we got farmlands and stuff up north that are causing problems.
It'd be nice to know what the source of that phosphorus
Well,
is, if it's
Well,
coming
I
from
thought we
Townsend
knew,
Brook.
a
Where
few
is it
years
coming
back,
from?
that Townsend Brook study you were talking about, we're trying to find the source or sources, and I don't know if we ever did, and it wasn't public, or we never could figure it out, but something is causing that to happen, obviously.
Did you find the source?
Well, a lot of the, I wouldn't say we found a lot of smoking guns per se, because as we mentioned before, the substrate of the soils that make up the Townsend Brook watershed are made up of apatite, and apatite has
There it is.
phosphorus in it.
Yeah.
So, throughout all of the years of discovery, we have not found one single source. It's death by 1,000 cuts, if you will. There's not one great single source of input into the lake that's causing
So it's a broad-
issues. There's
broad-
just a lot of things going on with the lake. It's got a very low turnover rate. It's got a 4-year turnover rate. And drop of water falls in that lake, it doesn't get out of there for 4 years. That's if you had a higher flushing rate, that would be a good thing. You've got there's just a lot of pressures on the lake constantly that are causing a lot of problems. It's not any one thing you can say, well, this is causing our problem. It's
We've
just
all-
not that simple.
yeah. But it has been determined if we could find a way to reduce that,
Right.
it
Yeah.
would help, it would be just
Yeah.
another help.
It's internal loading and external loading. Those are the two sources of phosphorus.
Do we know what percentage is which? Like what percentage is internal loading and what percent is external loading?
It changes every year, because you can get gully washer rains that will wash a lot of nutrients into the lake. And if you don't have that, and you just get a hot, dry summer, then you're getting internal phosphorus recycling from inside the lake. It's a,
So is that like that percentage fluctuate?
It does.
30%
Well-
one year and 70% the next year, or like, what are we talking? Are we talking 5 and 95? Are we talking 30 to 70? Like, what's that?
it's a number that I can't give you a good
A range?
percent. It's hard to say, it depends on what's going on. If we get a hurricane come through, then yeah, you're gonna have
On a
90%
normal
of your
year?
problem.
On a
The
normal
problem is we don't-
average
The
year?
problem is we don't have normal years anymore. We really don't.
We can get you a breakdown at the next meeting of the percentages and.
Yeah, if we
Yeah,
see
that'd
it
be great.
over
Yeah.
5
Seen in
years,
the last
find a
5
trend.
years.
Yeah, plus minus. I mean, it's not gonna be exact, but,
No major events will affect that, but those are few and far between, we can put those
Right.
in.
Certainly the most harmful years are the years where, kind of like this year, where it was very dry. The streams and inlets were near dry. And then you had 3-4 inch rainstorms where they went from no water to brown water, and it's rushing phosphorus into the lake, and all of a sudden, where you had a really nice, healthy ecosystem, and you were naturally, eating up and uptaking the phosphorus in the lake, all of a sudden you have this inrush, and you can't keep up with it all, and then it hasn't stopped raining since it started coming in, so now you've got a bunch in the lake from that initial rush, and it's still coming in. So it's a moving target all the time. That's why it's hard to just give you a number
Right.
of what it is. But we get that we've got the
report,
numbers.
And then I'm sure that LOPAC has the same numbers, or can get the same numbers.
They are the same numbers.
And
Yeah.
then, maybe we make recommendations to them in 2023 to start moving towards these, what they can do on their side. And we, I mean.
I mean, I think
obviously,
it's
we could
important
throw
for us
money
to
at
talk
it,
about what's the, right, are we gonna, you know, what are we talking about it? Like, how much is stuff that's already in the lake that we could, unless we dredge the lake and it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna change anything.
Actually dredging the lake, you know, back when we had the initial problems back, 2010 and 11, dredging the lake was one of the options that was on the table. It was quickly discounted, but that's what a lot of places do. They dredge the sediments out, and that keeps the internal recycling of phosphorus from happening. But it just wasn't practical in Lake Auburn. You're not going to dredge Lake Auburn.
Yeah.
You know, the other option they looked at was aeration. That's something that's effective at certain times, certain places. You know, Gulf Island, that whole impoundment is aerated, and that was an attempt to keep that water healthy. It was kind of discounted here because of the, you know, it was looked at, but it would have been exceedingly expensive. And then, given the internal recycling of phosphorus issue that the lake has, if you introduce a bunch of air bubbles into
Right,
that,
right,
is that
you're
just
making
gonna
it worse.
stir everything
Yeah,
up and make
right.
it worse? You know, that was discounted, and that's when the alum treatment became the #1 best
Yeah.
option that we had.
But what I mean, what I'm thinking more from a policy perspective is if we know it's 50% of the lake, 50% of the problem is caused by internal. It's stuff that, it doesn't matter what the septic system sitting next to the lake looks like, because 50% of the problems in the.
It's already there.
Is already there. Then now we're dealing with 50% of the problem. And then if we know it's 30% coming up from Townsend Brook, from upstream, then we know it's only 20%. So I don't know what that is. I think that'd be important to
And it'd
know.
be nice to know if we're doing better, you know, if things
Yeah.
are getting, trending less on the external and it's become more on the
Yeah.
internal, whatever, and what the trend has been over the past
And
so many years.
that exact thing you're looking for might be something that comes about as a result of this report we're looking to get from Ken Wagner, because he's gonna look at, you know, what's been going on and what
Mhm.
is the best thing for us to do moving forward. If it's coming from, if most of it is from external loading, is it better to do some watershed remediation, or is it better to, like I mentioned, you know, one thing they talked about is an alum dosing station. Does it make more sense to take care of that at the source where it's coming into the lake? You know, when it rains, you know, 99% of the time the lake is fine, but then you get a huge deluge of rain, and that's when all the nutrients come into the lake. Do you dose that input at the time that's happening, so it doesn't get into the lake and cause all that?
And you might get to an area where you've got too much alum, there's a limit to how much we can use alum. Right?
Well, right, I mean, it would have to be metered in based upon the volume of water that's coming in during us.
Because alum treatment's not the end-all be-all.
No,
We do
it's
it
just
every 2 years.
Right.
You know?
Well,
Right.
if you're looking at a total lake dose like we did back in 2019, that was a low dose, that was to strip the water column. But if you're looking at one that's gonna be a treatment of the sediment, you probably have to double the dose that we did at that
Yeah,
time.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But there's risks that, you know, there's,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's gonna be looked at very carefully, because
that's what I'm saying, the best thing to do is to do what we can to mitigate what's bringing it in. That's the whole discussion we've had the last few years, is to try and mitigate any that's coming in. But we have to know how much of it, like you said, if it's 50%.
Yeah, like,
internal,
what do we,
external, but still, we gotta,
because mitigation there's a finite amount of money.
well, that's right. There's only so much we can spend, there's only so much we can do. Eventually, we're gonna run out of that option. What do we do?
Everything costs money, and like, so we gotta figure out,
Yeah.
you know, the best bang for the
So
buck
you
to
think
get
that
the
this
most.
Ken Wagner's report will talk about everything? We've had several studies that have been done, and LawPac must have access to a lot of information too, about studies that have been done, where it's all coming from. I can't believe that at this stage, we still don't know, have the numbers to show what's causing it. So but maybe your stuff you give us will help.
We'll get you that information.
That'd be great. Hopefully, yeah, super. Thank you. All right, on to the budget.
Yep, so.
That's it for everybody.
Yep.
So in your packet is the final draft of the 2023 water budget. The only thing, and this was something I mentioned to sewer last night as well, the only change that is in this budget from the last draft we had, under the equipment, the last payment, there were 5 payments for the excavator, so the last payment is actually due in January, but it was just paid recently. So it's gonna be in this fiscal year, so that was taken out of next year's budget. So there's a reduction of 15,980, and you won't see that in this list of the equipment budget.
Okay, so it's not on.
It's not in the one you got because it was taken out. The one I gave you last month showed payment 5 of the Volvo excavator, so that's taken out, so that's essentially paid for, so that reduces the equipment budget.
It's good.
So there are no other adjustments to that 2023 budget unless anyone has any questions or comments. It's all in here. If you got a chance to look at it or have any come up with anything since the last time we went over it.
The only question that I wanted, I think I brought this up before, so forgive me for asking it again. But we have this page here that shows, so I was looking at where it says 2022 budgets. If you look at that page, payroll summary. So it shows 2022 budget was $1,039,000.
What page are you on now? It's
Payroll summary.
payroll summary.
And then we're projecting 1.2. But then we go down and we subtract take the 1.2 down at the bottom, it says allocation of gross labor. It comes out to, if we subtract the projects jobbing and all it was, it's only $100,000 for projects that we're expecting to
Yes.
spend
From payroll, yes.
from payroll.
Payroll only, yeah.
So for actually work that's being done, $100,000 to lay pipe out of this $1.2 million that we're spending in payroll, 100,000 of it goes to actually laying pipe.
The labor to lay
The
pipe.
labor to lay pipe.
Sounds low.
Just, yeah. But I thought it was interesting because it shows that 139,534 is very close to the 2022 budget of 139,114. That's kind of weird. Just look at those two numbers.
So one more time, you say, so it's basically 10% of our budget, labor budget,
Not
goes
even.
to, right, a little under 10% of our budget, but for round numbers, goes
Goes to
towards
actually
laying
laying
pipe.
Is that something we got off like a 3-year average?
It just seems like a lot less than I thought. I mean, the rest of it means it's administration.
Well, we do a lot more than just
Maintenance.
administration, the maintenance,
Maintenance,
and
yeah.
there's a
Right,
lot,
the
what we
maintenance,
do
that kind of
outside of
stuff,
the
right.
operations of the facilities, and
Mhm.
there's a lot that goes on.
General stuff.
Yeah.
As far as actually laying pipe down to $100,000.
Yeah, that's an interesting number, for sure.
Yeah.
How much do we spend, but we spend a lot to contractors.
Yeah, then
We also keep that as a conservative number, because if we do more work, that only benefits the budget. So it's better for budgeting purposes to keep that number conservative.
Well, that means that some of that other budget, instead of doing maintenance work, we're transferring it over to projects.
correct.
Which I'd like to see that increase personally. I just-
And believe me, we try to do it in-house so we can keep that number down. And the more we charge to it, the better it makes our budget look.
Well, considering what it costs for an outside company to
Yeah.
do work for us,
Right.
it's a huge savings whenever we do that.
Yep.
And I did want to mention too, I hope we can do more projects, because we have $600,000 budgeted for laying 1.9 miles of pipe.
Yep.
Last year, we had, if I remember right, $1 million
Right.
to do a little over 2 miles.
Yep.
So I guess that kind of thing makes me wonder, wait a minute.
I know they made you
went
do a head
half
spin, huh?
for the same amount of pipe?
Right.
So does that mean prices have gone down this year?
Well, our
Or-
construction method is gonna change next year. You know, we're not gonna be, you know, it's kinda hard. The best bang for the buck for us is to follow the reconstruction of a road. But if they're not gonna be reconstructing a road, then that creates a whole nother set of problems. Do you then take on one on your own? And, you know, you pay all the paving, all the construction, all the gravel, you know, for the whole project.
Yeah.
So the
I guess,
projects
yeah.
we picked for last year are gonna get the pipe replacement needed that we needed, and
We had to
it's gonna be
break.
the best bang for the buck. But can we do more? I think there's room to do more next year, and we can certainly work on that.
Do we have to, are you gonna be able to get the inventory?
That's gonna be the big question, you know, we get through the budgets, budget approvals tonight. I'm gonna be working, I've already met with our pipe supplier, and we're gonna be sitting down, you know, in the coming weeks to start planning this out and getting our hands on what we need for next year. And if we can get that stuff secured, and then I can start eyeballing, you know, one of the water main leak we had today was over on Marion and Marion Drive, and that's the third one we've had there in the last 4 years, and it's turning into Band-Aid Alley. So it doesn't look like it's gonna be on the reconstruction list anytime soon. Maybe that's a street that we, you know, all right, you know, I'll come up with an estimate, we'll run it by the board, if you support it, we'll take it on and do it. And if we don't have enough manpower to
Where's
do
Marion?
it. Yeah, it's over in between.
Broad and Mill.
Yep, Broad Mill.
Oh.
What's the
yeah.
pipe diameter?
It's 8-inch.
8.
It's a very steep slope, and it's a fairly steep street. I don't know what it is about that. It's concrete lined cast iron, so it's not like original cast iron pipe, so it's 60s vintage, but it has proven to be very brittle because it's broken many, many times. And being a steep slope, when it breaks, it can cause a lot of damage.
Yeah,
You
water.
know, it's caused a lot of road damage when it happens in the past.
Downhill.
And we had one there a couple of years ago that was pretty ugly by the time we got over there and shut it off.
But the one on Turner Street.
Yeah, that was the worst I'd ever seen.
Yeah, that was
That's the
up
worst
on
I'd ever.
Pipeline.
That's the worst I'd ever heard of. That
A lot of
was
undermining.
ridiculous.
Undermine, that's when I get the downhill undermining, you know, where's the break? Up there someplace, you know?
Yeah.
Water comes to the surface,
Yeah.
200 feet down
Right.
below.
I'm gonna approve this budget. I really don't like the idea of having 2 double-digit increases in a row. And I think, people think it's getting worse, but, you know, CPI is actually dropping a little bit, and inflation is dropping and waning a bit. There's things that are happening that I hope next year.
The
It won't have
increase
to be another.
is waning a little bit, but it's still going
Well,
up.
no, it's gotta stabilize at some point. I'm a believer in the markets, so I know that eventually it's going to now. Hopefully next year we won't be able to hit another
We
double-digit
just raised
increase.
interest rates again by half a point today, so.
Well, I know
Eventually they're
all
gonna
that-
grind
All
it
that does
out.
is cause the stock market to crash again.
Well,
Time
it's,
to buy bonds.
it's gonna happen. There's no other way to fix it.
No,
Well,
I don't mean.
There's some
Take out a
controversy
bond.
there too, but so that's all I'm gonna say, is I just hope that, because we were in extraordinary
Never
times,
been so high.
we won't nitpick this year, but I think next year we really gotta look towards ways to, because that's 30% in 3 years, that's like, come on.
It's unsustainable.
It's unsustainable, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think we get the same issue with the city. We're looking at massive,
Well, you're going into your 2nd year of inflationary times, so last year was your 1st year, this is your.
this is
we're
the
having
year,
our
this
second
is the
this
year
our
where
second
we're
year.
gonna have to take a look at, are we gonna raise taxes, cut services, or
Right.
are we gonna start approving development in the city? That's it,
Development.
because we can't print money.
Isn't a development approval an ongoing type?
Yeah, I mean, but unless that's only 3 things we got.
But
Cut
that doesn't help
services.
with this Harvard and TIF, so, or half of it. We just gotta, it's gonna be a tough year, for sure.
Especially with what Lewiston did,
Yeah, with their
police.
police. Probably, it's gonna be across the board too.
Yeah, because the fire department's gonna come walking up, when people not want an EMT.
Huge increases in salaries, just blanket.
All right.
Yeah, Lewis depends on United, like
But
Auburn
thank
has
you
a
for your work on the
road
budget.
ambulance.
That's it. I mean, I appreciate all the work that goes into it. I just get frustrated because I'd like to see a much softer result. That's my only.
Understandable.
I think these are still in the budget.
That's, yeah, what we paid for.
The giant one,
Well,
That's one good thing is never should be short of minutes, because those are cheap.
There we go, that's right.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Pam, 1 minute?
I had one, I had one, thank you, I'm good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I gave mine to Pam.
Okay.
Yeah, he's having my second one
This is
now.
our 10-point-something% mint.
Right. Mint allocation, okay.
So we voting on this now?
No, it's the
We
group.
get, yeah, we get a, that's a little bit
Sewer,
later,
right?
half an hour.
In half an hour, we have a meeting, and then at 5:30.
All right, so that's the budget. The FBE Lake Auburn peer review memo.
I'll let Mike take that one, he was at the meeting.
I'm the secretary for the Watershed Commission. We did have a meeting last week. So the commission hired CEI to do a peer review of the FB environmental lake study. That study was presented to the commissioners by Rebecca Volpe from CEI. There was a number of, I know the copy of the reports in your handouts. I think on page 2, you'll see some of the recommendations from CEI. The commission took those recommendations into consideration. They actually took those and they made several other notes. They actually discussed at length what you guys were talking about tonight, the upper watershed, and how to control, what's going on, not just in Auburn, but what's going on in the upper watershed towns. And they are going to be putting together a bullet list of things such as that and the recommendations of this. There's going to be a workshop January 10th, and they're going to be going over those items, and their plan was, and their discussion was, to send a letter or correspondence to the Auburn Water District in regards to notes from the report and other items such as upper watershed towns and strategies for working on that. So that's kind of a summary of what they discussed. They're going to be workshopping that January 10th, and they're going to bring that forward for vote by the commission in February.
Keeping it moving.
Well, there's a couple of things, and I have to obviously be careful what we say. So all I'm going to say on this one is, you're going to be meeting the secretary of that.
Yep.
So the only thing that I wanted to mention here was that they had a couple of things that were said in here, that a few words that shouldn't have been used, like the word relaxing. There's nothing that's relaxing the septic standards. It's actually making them more stringent. And then there was another segment in here was, you talked about FBE assumed that alum treatment would continue in perpetuity. Well, there's been no decision that that's going to continue in perpetuity. I think that the environmental study said if you did this, 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 and this, this was one option you had to fix the problem, which we're already talking about. Whether that can't be in perpetuity, I don't think FB Environmental would recommend it, and I don't think anybody recommended it.
Well, they did put it into a table where they had assumed that you would do alum treatments in intervals.
Well, that
So
was
that's
based
why-
on certain criteria. Certain things happen. If we
Right.
did certain things, this might have to happen, but it wasn't that was going to happen. So,
Right.
but they're acting like it's going to be.
The commissioners
perpetuity.
also called that out, and
Okay,
like,
good.
we're
Who
not.
said that?
Right, so again, that's a
Even the study of
common,
the study's got issues, so I mean, I get worried because we have a study of the study, and then we'll have a study of the study, and then we'll have another study of the study. I don't know where it ends, but.
Okay. If that's it, we'll move on to trustee training opportunity.
Yeah, so
Oh,
every once in a while, these things come up, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. The Maine Water Utility Association is offering, it's in the back of your, well, near the back of your packet.
Yeah, it was that one pager.
There's 2 pages there. There's one that kind of, the Bruce Berger, who's the director of Maine Water Utility Association, put out a memo just letting you know that this opportunity exists. It's just an FYI, if any board member is showing an interest in it at all, but there's five separate 3-hour training sessions that are going to start in January 12th. You can either do these trainings in person or remotely if you so choose. Totally up to you, but I just wanted to let you know that this is available. These don't always come around, and this, when they do, I just want to make sure that you are aware of them. So if all of you or none of you are interested, that's fine. But if you are, let us know, and we can make sure you're signed up for these.
I'm very interested, but if you can't make, like, they can't make the first one.
Yep.
I'm gonna be out of town that week, but can you continue on, you don't have to hit all 5 of them.
No,
You can
I don't
just hit
think
the ones
so.
you want.
Yep. I
I
believe so.
mean, I think this really,
Maine Water Utilities is really good about their presentations as well. You could probably catch that class.
So these are the best stuff?
I believe they're in Augusta if you go in person. But they can be, again, signed up for remotely as well.
I'll go look at my schedule, and then do I email you, or do I email?
Yeah, we can find out about if we can watch that.
Email Mike?
It looks like it's Thursdays. you know, the time, I was looking at the dates.
Yeah.
It looks like they're Thursday.
As Tanya mentioned too, they're really good about, so they'll put all of these classes on, and then they have a virtual store, so if you wanted to, you know, you could go on, turn it on, you won't be able to participate in the class, but you'd be able to watch the presentation, hear the questions that were asked, and get the comments that were given back. You'll be able to do that at a later time. So if that date doesn't work for you, but you had a topic that you really liked,
I could go back and
you
watch
could
that.
go back and, you could go back and get it,
I
right?
see.
Yep.
I think it's a great idea. Maybe not all of them, but.
Walking the tightrope.
So, that's it for
Want me to
that.
teach that one?
Okay.
Okay. Trustee appointments?
Yep, just wanted to alert the board again. We, for the water trustees, Jason's not here, but his, as you know, some of the appointments of the trustees are staggered. In 2023, Jason Paulina's appointment comes up. Contacted the city clerk, Sue Clements Delaire. As you also know, all of the appointments are made by the city of Auburn. So sometime in late January, early February, there's going to be a meeting of the nominating committee, of which Steve is one of them. So Sue will be notifying, in particular, Jason of his appointment coming up. We'd like to have appointments made so that they are ready to go for our annual meeting in March. So, we'll see if any other nominations come in. I haven't talked to Jason, I'm not sure if he's looking to up his appointment or not, but she will contact him and see if that's something he's interested in.
And then she'll put it up on the website showing the
Yep.
availability. And when do they allow people to,
Usually it's a month ahead.
so sometimes?
Usually it's about, I think it's a month or 6 weeks, I think, is when they put it up. There's a chartered time period, I'm not sure
There's a
what that is.
deadline, yeah.
There's nothing we do as a board.
No,
No.
no, you get what we give you.
That's it. That's how you ended up with me.
So that's it for that one.
Please. Okay. District engineer search.
Yep, so we have put out the advertisement in as many places as we could think of for the ad. As you know, we're looking for a district engineer. The results we've got back so far, I guess all I can say is we are going through the process and we're trying to find applicants. It's been pretty lean so far. And it is hard to find people right now. We've checked as many trade associations as we can, and it's just, it's a hard time to find people.
Have you had any?
We've had a few, we have actually conducted one interview, but we still have it out there, it's still an active process. We're hoping to find some qualified applicants. But it has proven to be very challenging. It's a hard time right now to find people.
Could you share with us the people whom you have talked to about the position?
Or people that have applied, so we can get an idea of what kind of, confidentially?
Or not using
Like one from India and one from Saudi Arabia?
Well, we've,
Well, don't laugh at that.
What?
That's a
We're on
fact.
video.
It's what?
Yeah, I can send you a list of the folks who have applied, and there is one that we interviewed with. I can share that with you, so.
Yeah,
I mean, we're allowed to see their CVs.
For what?
We'd gotten a couple of candidates at the last meeting, but we hadn't gotten that one that we'd interviewed with, but.
I don't know if we can see all that.
I think we're,
Publicly, I think we can in
not
executive session.
publicly, in the executive session, we could see their CVs,
Yeah,
I think.
in executive session, there's no reason why we couldn't get
Yep.
an update showing
Yep.
particulars,
Right, not publicly though.
but not publicly.
Right.
I guess the bottom line is it's still an open process, and we're really.
We check with like
hard.
the University of Maine or any other kind of schools that have engineering programs and see if there's
We didn't, you know, we went through Maine Municipal Association, went through Maine Water Utility Association, we're on American Water Works Association. We have reached out to a couple of different recruitment firms for assistance. They talked about going to some different engineering facilities and, you know, advertising with the alumni. So we've looked into that. We're on Indeed, ZipRecruiter. We've been on a bunch of different advertisement sites.
We haven't checked with universities, because we're looking to hire a professional
Well, if you
engineer.
can, yeah, well, a graduate maybe this.
Well, a graduate's not gonna get a PE license for 4 years.
Oh, is that
So,
right?
yeah, so we're not looking at universities
Yeah,
right
graduate
now.
with an EIT.
Oh, I
It's
see.
4 or 5 years, depending on the degree.
And most likely they won't have much in the way of water and sewer experience, you know, freshly graduating. But, you know, that's where to go after the alumni would be the better approach to,
Sure.
you know, that, then they've established their PE and hopefully have some experience. But we're working on it and hopeful.
We have nothing if not hope.
Well, I think maybe we should put, in January's meeting, can we put an executive session in to discuss the engineering search, and we can do some, whatever that's a personnel matter, I would guess. And let's have more in-depth discussion at that point. We want to evaluate.
Would that be at the beginning or the end? Only so I know when time to come.
I mean, usually they go in under new business.
It'll be on, you'll get an email with what the, if
Okay.
you go on, you can look at.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Sid, this meeting schedule, or?
Meeting schedule, also in your packet is a schedule of next year's trustee meetings. There is something to bring to your attention. Last night at the sewer trustee meeting, voted to change the meeting dates in November and December. And looking at your schedule here, meeting dates, this one shows, I'll be modifying this and sending it out if you agree to it. But we're looking at having the November meeting, it says the 22nd, we'd like to change that to the 15th. Because, yeah, the date that's in there is Thanksgiving week. So we looked at possibly, and sewer last night did vote to approve to have their meeting on November 14th. So looking at water on the 15th, so that would be the week before Thanksgiving. And then looking at the December meetings, yours shows December 13th. Looking to change that to the 20th, because the way the calendar works, that still is the week before Christmas. It's not the week of Christmas, it's the week before. So the sewer meeting will be on the 12th. So I'm looking to change the water one from the 13th to the 20th.
So the water, sewer will be the 19th.
Correct. So, so the meeting, yeah, so it'll be the 20th, and then the joint meeting and the budget approval will also be on the 20th. So that's
What's the meeting, the joint meeting is what day?
20th.
That's right, the 20th.
Yeah, they're both on the 20th. The regular meeting and the joint meeting would be on the 20th.
Yeah.
Sounds fine.
So if people are fine with that,
Good
I
with
will
me.
modify that and send it out.
Everybody good with that? Okay. All right, and that brings us to trustee open session. Anybody have anything they want to? I'll just say that I realized when I sat down and said, this is your official last meeting. I didn't
Yeah, just hit me too.
just realize, so I think we'd be, remiss if we didn't acknowledge it and say thank you. And
Thank you, Sid.
you've certainly had a long career in public service on from both Lewiston and Auburn, and wish you all the best on the next chapter in life, and hope you and your wife have a long, fun,
Happy.
adventurous, happy,
All the details.
get to do a lot of fun stuff and spend lots of grandkids and all that stuff. Not too soon, I
Boy.
I know, right?
Whoa, you know something, Ed?
Well,
You already got a
no,
trip.
what do you have, 3 kids, right?
Right, I do, yeah. No grandchildren. But no,
Yeah.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Grand Canyon trip, and then it'll be Alaska trip, I'm sure, somewhere in that.
I don't know, we'll
Everybody
see.
talks
What,
about that.
can you share with us some things on the bucket list that you want to do in retirement besides the Grand Canyon? Like things that you've always looked at that you hope you get to do?
The only thing that's on my list, I really have not filled up my list with anything.
Wise man.
No, I'm gonna take it as it comes. I have no grandiose plans or.
It's gonna come, it's gonna fill up.
It'll come, but
That's
yeah,
gonna be a
yeah, but I haven't really.
West.
Oh, yeah, it
Yeah.
will, it will. I'm looking forward to that. But that's not till April, but I'm not, I've got no great or crazy plans yet.
Spend a lot of time up to camp?
Yep, hopefully. Yep, that's the
Well, thank you
plan.
for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So,
Appreciate it.
do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All right, all in favor? All right, we are adjourned.
So, as you all know, 5:15, we'll have the,
Reconvene at 5:50.
yep, reconvene at 5:15, the joint budget workshop, and 5:30, call, the public hearing, and budget adoption.
Okay.